My name is Elena. I'm 27 years old. The ceiling lights in the hospital hummed softly, a constant reminder that I wasn't at home, that I wasn't safe. My body felt like stone, heavy and unresponsive, tubes tethering me to machines that beeped in mechanical rhythm. When I closed my eyes, I could almost pretend someone I loved was just beyond the curtain. Almost. But reality was sharper than any foreneedle. When I collapsed at work, I thought the hardest part would be the pain in my chest, the suffocating weakness that dragged me down. But no, the hardest part was waiting, hearing the doctors say they'd call my parents, only for silence to stretch on for hours. No footsteps rushing down the hall. No hands squeezing mine. Just the sterile chill of abandonment, until my phone buzzed. Not with concern, not with love, but with a notification. It was a photo. My brother's arm wrapped around my mother's shoulders, their smiles bright against the caption. Family day without the drama. My fingers trembled as I held the phone, though my body was too weak to lift it properly. The nurses thought the tears in my eyes were from pain. They weren't. They were from the gutting clarity of knowing my family had made a choice. And it wasn't me. I didn't respond. I stayed silent. Days bled together under the weight of medication and beeping monitors. My body healed slowly, but my spirit felt cracked hollow. Until one night, barely conscious, hooked to oxygen, I saw the screen of my phone light up again. 74 missed calls. And then a text from Mom. We need you. Answer immediately. I stared at those words. They didn't sound like care. They sounded like command. Like I was still useful somehow, but only now that it benefited them. My thumb hovered over the screen, the glow casting shadows across the hospital sheets. For a moment, I thought of the girl I used to be, the daughter who always said yes, who filled in every gap, who carried the weight of everyone's expectations on her back. But lying there, with machines doing the work my own body could not, something inside me shifted. I realized silence wasn't weakness. Silence could be power. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries so far you barely recognized yourself anymore? Let me know in the comments. I didn't type a word back. I just whispered into the cold air. Not this time. And in that moment, my silence grew louder than their noise. The next morning, the nurse adjusted my IV and asked gently, Do you want me to put your phone on silent? You've had so many calls. It must be exhausting. I shook my head, my voice weak but steady. No, let it ring. Let me hear how badly they want me now. It kept buzzing, the same names flashing across the screen. Mom, Dad, my brother, over and over. Each vibration felt like a ghost tapping at my ribs, reminding me of the night I lay here alone, staring at that cruel caption. Family day without the drama. By noon, I finally opened one voicemail. My brother's voice, sharp with irritation. Elena, pick up already. This isn't about you being sick. Something's happened at the house. Call back now. Not once did he say how are you. Not once did he ask if I was even alive. I replayed it, staring at the cracked corner of my phone screen. A fracture that spidered outward like the truth I had tried to ignore my whole life. My worth to them was conditional. Useful when they needed me. Disposable when they didn't. The cracked screen became my new motif, the symbol of every fracture they had left in me. Later that evening, a nurse came in with a tray of bland hospital food. The soup smelled faintly of celery. The bread was too dry, but I ate slowly. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, this time from Mom. Elena, you don't understand. We need you. The bank called. There's a situation with the co-signed loan. You're the only one who can. I stopped listening. My stomach twisted, not from the soup, but from the clarity. It wasn't me they needed. It was my name, my signature, my credit. My parents had dragged me into their debts years ago when I was too young, too desperate for approval to say no. Now, lying here half-broken, they still saw me not as a daughter, but as collateral. The fluorescent lights flickered above, buzzing like angry bees. I leaned back against the stiff pillows and let out a breath that felt heavier than any exhale I'd ever known. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt for ignoring them. I felt curious about what would happen if I didn't play their game. Would they crumble without me? Or would they finally see me, not as their solution, but as the silence they could no longer control? The machines beside me beeped in rhythm, steady, unyielding. My body was healing, but my heart was plotting. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going to be their pawn anymore. And as I turned my cracked phone face down on the tray, I whispered, almost smiling, "Let them feel what it's like to be ignored." The following day, a social worker came to check on me. She wore a soft gray cardigan and carried a folder filled with papers. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Elena, you've listed your parents as your emergency contacts. But from what I've observed, maybe we should revisit that." Her words pressed against me like a door opening to a room I didn't want to enter. I swallowed, my throat raw from days of silence. If not them, then who? She hesitated, her pen hovering. "Is there anyone else you trust?" Trust. The word sat like a stone in my stomach. My friends had slowly drifted away over the years, worn down by my family's demands and my constant excuses. I had become the girl who canceled plans last minute, who showed up tired and distracted, who always had a sibling's crisis or a parent's errand to run. I wanted to tell the social worker no, that there was no one left. But then my mind wandered to Aunt Miriam, my mother's estranged sister. We hadn't spoken in years, but I remembered her words at a family gathering when I was younger. "Elena, you don't owe them your life. One day you'll see that." Maybe that day had come. I gave the social worker her number. She nodded gently, scribbling it down. "Good. You need someone who's here for you, not just for what you can give." That evening, my phone buzzed again, not with family voicemails this time, but with a text from Aunt Miriam. "Sweetheart, I just heard. I'm on my way. Don't worry about anything." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something unfamiliar. Relief. When she arrived the next morning, she didn't bring flowers or gifts. She brought a thermos of real coffee and a small framed photo of the ocean. She set it on my bedside table without a word, as if to remind me there was a world outside the hospital walls. "You still wear that perfume?" she asked suddenly, wrinkling her nose with a smile. "Smells like the Elena I remember." I almost laughed. It felt surreal, how her presence filled the room so easily, while my parents' absence had left it hollow. She sat beside me, brushing her hand over mine. "They only call when they want something, don't they?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already knew. And as my phone buzzed once more, Mom's name flashing across the screen, Aunt Miriam reached over and turned it face down for me. "Let them wait," she whispered. For the first time, I believed it was okay to let them. Aunt Miriam stayed by my side for hours, her presence a shield against the storm that kept buzzing in my pocket. Every vibration of my phone seemed louder, more desperate, but I didn't move to answer. Miriam didn't push either. She just poured coffee into a paper cup and handed it to me, like she was handing me back a piece of myself. "You know," she said softly, "silence isn't just absence. It's a choice, one they never expected you to make." Her words echoed inside me, sharper than the beeping machines. Silence as a choice. My family had always painted it as weakness, a refusal to engage a flaw. But now it felt like armor. That afternoon, a nurse came in with paperwork, the hospital discharge forms. I wasn't fully healed, but I was stable enough to go home. The thought of returning to my parents' house made my skin prickle. Miriam noticed immediately. "You don't have to go back there," she said, her voice firm. "You'll come with me." I hesitated. "But my things." "Elena!" She cut me off gently. Sometimes leaving everything behind is the only way to start breathing again. Her conviction rattled me. I had spent years believing I couldn't exist outside of their grip. But now Miriam was offering a door out, and I realized I wanted to walk through it. When she helped me into her car later that evening, the cracked phone lay heavy in my pocket. It buzzed again. This time I unlocked it. Dozens of texts. My brother's voice messages, turning sharper. Elena, stop playing games. The bank froze the account. They're saying your name is on it. Fix this now. My mother's texts, frantic. We need your signature. They won't release the funds without you. You don't understand what's at stake. Not once, are you okay? Not once. We're sorry we weren't there. Only demands. Only panic. I closed the screen and turned to Miriam. They don't see me. They only see what I can give them. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then stop giving. Let them live with the emptiness they created. The city lights blurred outside the window. Streaks of gold and white like a painting melting. I leaned back, weak but strangely lighter. I pulled the photo Miriam had given me, the ocean, and studied it. The waves looked endless, unstoppable. A reminder that silence wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something vast. As Miriam drove us away from the hospital, I whispered to myself, they wanted me silent. Now they'll learn what my silence really means. Miriam's house smelled of sandalwood and old books. The walls were lined with shelves, filled not with family portraits, but with art, seashells, and little fragments from her travels. It felt alive, unlike my parents' house, where silence meant judgment, not peace. She gave me the guest room, freshly made with clean sheets. On the nightstand sat a lamp with a warm glow, nothing like the sterile fluorescence of the hospital. I eased onto the bed, exhaustion tugging at me, but my mind stayed sharp. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. Instead, I focused on the cracked glass of the screen. Each fracture felt symbolic now, splintering into patterns that resembled branches or veins. Proof that even broken things could carry beauty, even strength. By morning, Miriam had brewed strong coffee. She slid a mug across the table to me. What's your plan, Elena? I hesitated. For the first time, someone was asking me not what I could do for others, but what I wanted. I don't know, I admitted. But I don't want to keep being their solution. Miriam nodded, as though she'd expected that answer. Then start by cutting the cord. Her words lingered as I opened my phone. Again, dozens of messages, but one stood out from Dad. Elena, the lawyer says your refusal to cooperate will cost us everything. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The word nearly made me laugh. All those years of bending, breaking, bleeding for them, and now they called me selfish for standing still. I scrolled further. A new voicemail. Mom's voice cracked, but not from concern, only fear. They froze the accounts, Elena. We can't pay the mortgage. We need your signature. Do you want us to lose the house? For a moment, the old Elena stirred, the girl who would have rushed to fix everything, who would have sacrificed her own recovery to protect them. But I pressed play again, listening closely to the tone. Not once did Mom mention me, my health, or my survival. Just the house. Just money. I put the phone down. My silence, once heavy, was starting to feel like power. Miriam reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Elena, sometimes revenge isn't shouting back. It's removing your voice entirely and letting their own noise destroy them. I thought about that as the day passed, each buzz of my phone unanswered. Their panic grew louder, while my silence grew steadier. That evening, I took the cracked phone outside, held it under the fading sun, and whispered to it, "You won't control me anymore." And for the first time, I truly believed it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air in Miriam's house was calm, almost too calm, and my mind kept circling back to the flood of messages I'd ignored. Around midnight, I sat by the window, the ocean photo Miriam had given me resting in my lap. The glass frame reflected the moonlight, and I thought about how strange it was that something so still, a picture, could carry such movement, such depth. Waves frozen yet alive. My phone buzzed again. This time I unlocked it. A new voicemail. My brother's voice, sharp and furious. "Elena," the lawyer called me. "Do you realize what you're doing? You're going to ruin all of us. Don't be dramatic. Just sign the papers." That word again. Dramatic. The same word they'd used when I cried as a child, when I spoke up as a teenager, when I begged them as an adult to treat me as more than their errand girl. Dramatic, like my feelings were a performance. I pressed delete. The next voicemail came from Dad. His voice was cold, clipped. "You always wanted to be independent, Elena. Well, congratulations. Now you can watch your entire family fall apart because of you." I stared at the phone, feeling the weight of every syllable. For years, they'd told me I was fragile. But as I listened, I realized fragile things can cut too. Glass shatters, but it wounds on the way down. The final voicemail was quieter. Mom's voice weary. "Elena, you're our daughter. Please, just help us this one time. After this, things will be different." But I knew better. Things wouldn't change. They never had. I turned off the phone completely and set it face down on the windowsill. Silence filled the room. Thick, but not suffocating. It felt like mine. The next morning, Miriam drove me to her lawyer friend, a woman named Clara with kind eyes but a steel edge in her voice. Clara explained the loan situation carefully, line by line, until I understood the trap. My parents had co-signed everything in my name. If I signed again, I'd be on the hook for debts I'd never recover from. "You have a choice," Clara said, sliding the papers across the desk. "You can protect yourself, or you can save them." For the first time in my life, I didn't hesitate. I pushed the papers back. "I choose me." Miriam smiled faintly, her hand resting over mine. That's the Elena I knew was still in there. As we left the office, I felt lighter, though a storm waited on the horizon. My parents wouldn't accept my silence forever, but now I was ready for the noise. The storm broke sooner than I expected. By evening, there was a knock at Miriam's door, loud, insistent. My chest tightened as the sound echoed through the small house. Miriam looked at me, calm but firm. "Stay seated," she whispered before opening the door. It was my brother. His face flushed, his voice already raised. "Where is she? Elena, you can't just disappear. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stood in the hallway, the photo of the ocean clutched to my chest like a shield. "What I've done," I said slowly, "is finally choose myself." He scoffed, stepping into the house without invitation. "You're being selfish. Mom hasn't slept. Dad's furious. And the bank, God, Elena, they're threatening foreclosure. All because you refused to sign one little paper." One little paper. My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. That little paper would tie me to debts I never created. "You knew that, didn't you?" His silence told me everything. Miriam crossed her arms, standing between us. "You've drained her long enough. Leave." But my brother wasn't listening. His eyes darted to me, hard and desperate. "You think you're strong now? You think this silence makes you powerful? Wait until you're alone again, Elena. No family, no home. Who will you run to then?" For a moment his words pierced me. Alone. The one fear I had never shaken. But then my gaze fell to the cracked screen of my phone on the table. Splintered, but still glowing faintly with unanswered messages. Broken, yet functioning. Just like me. I stepped closer, steady despite the tremor in my knees. "You're right," I said. "I am alone. But I'd rather be alone than shackled to a family who only remembers me when they're drowning." His face twisted, anger and disbelief colliding. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I whispered, "but regret is lighter than chains." Miriam opened the door wider, her voice unyielding. "Leave now, or I'll make sure the police understand exactly what you and your parents have done with her name." For the first time, my brother faltered. His bravado cracked, just like the glass on my phone. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. Silence filled the house again, thick but victorious. I sank into the chair, the ocean photo still in my hands. The waves seemed to move with me, reminding me that water carves stone not by force but by persistence. And in that moment I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of theirs unraveling. The house was quiet again after my brother left, but it wasn't the suffocating quiet of abandonment. It was a steady calm, the kind that follows a storm. Miriam sat across from me, her hands folded, watching me with the patience of someone who had once stood where I stood now. "Elena," she said softly, "you don't need to fight them with noise. You've already won with silence." Her words settled into me like seeds. The next morning, Clara, the lawyer, called with an update. "The bank confirmed they can't move forward without your consent. Your parents' accounts remain frozen. They'll have to face the consequences themselves." I closed my eyes, letting the truth sink in. For the first time, their mistakes weren't mine to carry. The burden had shifted back where it belonged. Later that day, I finally turned my phone back on. Hundreds of messages flooded in, but I didn't scroll. Instead, I opened a new message, the first I'd written in weeks. To Mom. It read simply, "I hope one day you see me as more than a signature. Until then, I'll stay silent." I pressed send and set the phone aside, not as an invitation for reconciliation, but as closure. That evening, Miriam poured us tea. The sun dipped low, painting the room in gold. I stared at the ocean photo on the table, the waves captured mid-motion. It struck me how much I had been like that ocean, underestimated, taken for granted, but impossible to control. A week later, I received a letter, not from my parents, but from their lawyer. Cold, official words. "Your parents request reconsideration for the co-signed obligations." I folded it neatly, slid it into the drawer, and left it unanswered. That was my answer. Months passed. My body healed. My strength returned. And with it, a new life began to form, one not chained to their demands. I found work near Miriam's home, started meeting new people, even laughed without the shadow of guilt hanging over me. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hold that cracked phone, tracing the fractures on the screen with my fingertip. It reminded me of who I had been and who I had become. Broken in places, yes, but unbroken in spirit. I never returned to their house, and though they tried again and again to pull me back into their orbit, I stayed firm. My silence became the loudest truth they had ever heard. If you've ever chosen silence over chaos, if you've ever found strength in walking away, just say same in the comments. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is simply refusing to play the role they wrote for you.